Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dr. Claire Broughton, and today we'll be discussing Chapter 8 on social process and social development theories. This particular lecture would be divided into two parts. The first part would be theories of social process, and then the second part of my recorded video lectures will only focus on social development theories. So that would be a separate lecture, separate video lecture. So anyway, let's start with social process theories. Social process theories depend on the process of interaction between individuals and society for explanatory power. So social process theories focus on how certain types of interaction with people in society lead or predispose someone towards criminal offending. This slide, I want you to read the principles of social process and social development theories on your own. You have copies of the slide of this PowerPoint presentation on Blackboard, so please go over it. Now, for social process theories, I will be focusing and discussing with you social learning theory, social control theory, and labeling theory. So the first theory is social learning theory, and this explains that all types of behavior are learned through the same processes in the same way, whether or not it's criminal or non-criminal behavior. And through learning, through modeling, mimicking, interacting with others, we acquire norms, values, and patterns of behavior either conducive to crime or pro-social, not conducive to crime. The first theory under social learning theory is differential association theory, and the primary proponent is Edwin Sutherland. He explained that criminality is learned through a process of differential association with others who communicate criminal values and advocate the commission of crimes. Now, if you've heard of the saying, birds of a feather flock together, or show me who your friends are and I'll show you who you are. This is very much an application of differential association theory. So you learn values, whether it's criminal or normal, through association, through interaction with others. Some of the key principles of differential association theory is that criminal behavior is learned. Criminal behavior is learned in interaction with others in a process of communication. And the principal part of the learning of criminal behavior occurs within intimate personal groups. Learning includes the technique of committing crimes and the direction of motives, drives, rationalizations, and attitudes. 5, the specific direction of motives and drives is learned from definitions of the legal codes as favorable or unfavorable. 6, a person becomes delinquent because of an excess of definitions favorable to law violation over those unfavorable to law violation. Now, let me give a brief explanation of number 6. It simply means that we as persons, humans, social beings, we are exposed to both criminal or delinquent values and non-delinquent or pro-social normal values. It's impossible that we are only exposed to either normal or delinquent values all the time. It will be a mix of this, but differential association theory explains that we ourselves become delinquent if we are exposed to more friends, to more interactions, and to more people who espouse or favor or advocate delinquent values. Number 7, differential associations may vary in frequency, duration, priority, and intensity. 8, the principles of learning criminal behavior involves the same mechanisms involved in other learning. 9, while criminal behavior is an expression of general needs and values, it is not explained by those needs and values. So differential association was widely accepted in the mid-20th century because it combined both elements, both psychological and sociological elements. Okay, I'll let you read this next couple slides on your own because I want to focus on social control theories. So the next theory that I want to discuss with you today are social control theories, and these seek to identify features of personality and environment that keep people from committing crimes. So the focus is on the process of social integration and why do people obey rules instead of breaking them. Okay. One example of a social control theory is the containment theory. And Reckless said that crime is a consequence of social pressures to commit crime and failure to resist such pressures. He coined the concept of external containment, which is basically the holding power of the social group. So if you're like, for example, your family is a group, right? So to what extent does your family um, is your family able to control you? You're also probably members of, social peers, or, a group of friends. So external containment is the extent to which your group of friends are able to prevent you from committing any type of crime or delinquency. Inner containment is it's your own self. It's your values, your principles, and it's your ability to follow expected norms. This is enhanced by positive self-image, focus on socially approved goals, realistic personal aspirations, tolerance for frustration, and general adherence to social norms and values. So containment is a stabilizing force. This is the diagram of containment theory. Note that for each individual, there will be pushes towards crime and pulls towards crime, okay? Now, the next would be social bond theory. Social bond theory, the primary proponent is Travis Hershey. And Travis Hershey explained that social bonds are formed between individuals and the social group through successful socialization. When a bond is weakened or broken, deviance and crime may result. So social bond theory is an abstract theory. It's an abstract concept, this bond to society. And social bond has four elements. Social bond is composed of attachment, involvement, belief, and containment. Going over these components, attachment is a person's shared interest with others, okay? To what extent do you share interests with your family, with your friends, with your work group, and or with your, if you're still in school, to what extent do you share interests with other students? Commitment is the amount of energy put into activities with others. For example, if you have a goal of successfully obtaining your diploma, how many hours do you put into doing your homework and studying, reading the materials? That's commitment. Involvement is the amount of time spent in shared activities with others. So it's an example would be, how often how many times a day or how long a day do you engage in sports? Okay. How long a day do you go to church? Okay. So involvement is presupposes that the number of hours in a given day is limited to 24 hours. So the more you're engaged in activities that are pro-social, obviously, the less time you would have to engage in antisocial or delinquent behavior. Now, belief is a shared value and moral system. So belief in lawful norms strengthens the social bond. High attachment strengthens the social bond. High commitment strengthens the social bond. High involvement in activities with others strengthens the social bond. Corollarily, lower attachment, lower commitment, lower involvement, and low belief weakens the social bond and makes one more likely to commit delinquent acts. Now, Travis Hershey and Michael Gottfredson also coined a general theory of crime. And in contrast to social bond theory, there's only one explanation for crime and delinquency. They explain that low self-control is the primary or leading cause for all crime. What is self-control? Self-control is the degree to which a person is vulnerable to the temptations of the moment. It's acquired early in life, and low self-control is the primary individual level cause of crime. Now, how does this develop? It is developed and fostered initially by parents, but it grows continually throughout one's life course. Okay, so this theory is built on the rational choice perspective, and people or offenders who lack control over their own desires are more likely to commit crime. Okay. Now, the next theory I want to discuss with you is control balance theory. Title blends social bond theory and containment perspectives, and he suggested that too much control is as bad as too little. Basically, he coined the concept of control ratio. Control ratio is the amount of control to which a person is subjected versus the amount of control that person exerts over others. So it's a ratio. It's, you divide it. And the control ratio predicts the probability that one would engage in deviance and the specific form it would take. An illustration of control ratio, okay, which is a ratio of control exercised over control experience, is in figure 8-4. Control surplus refers to the fact that you control more, you have more control versus the the amount of control that you experience. So there's a surplus. You have more control as opposed to the type or the amount of control that you experience. So that's control surplus. Control deficit, you're being controlled more than you exert control over others. So you lack power, right? So you can see that both types are bad according to title. So control surplus, if you look at the second arrow, the red arrow, the probability of crime is high. So here you have, white collar crime, corporate crime. So even if you have control surplus, you still would commit crime. Control deficit, also you have a high probability of crime. If you look at the types of crime, the green arrow, if you have high control or control surplus, the types of crimes you would commit are exploitation or plunder, white collar crime, official deviance, and police corruption. On the other hand, if you have control deficit, the types of crime you would commit are physical violence, rape, robbery, and street crime. Okay. Now, the last and final theory that I want to discuss with you today is the labeling theory. Labeling theory explains that society's response to known or suspected offenders is what leads to future criminality of these offenders. So it's actually how society labels these offenders is the reaction of society to initial deviance that perpetuates a continuing and self-fulfilling prophecy of criminality. Now, what is tagging? Tagging is a process wherein the individual is negatively defined by agencies of justice. For example, police officers call the person a suspect, right? And through the whole process of court, when the person is brought to trial, again, the person is considered an offender, a suspect, and later when the person is convicted, convict. All of these labels on the person are defined as bad. And because of this, once a person is processed through the criminal justice system, there are few legitimate opportunities available, and the person can only associate with others similarly defined. So this association leads to continued crime. Okay. Now, in explaining tagging or labeling theory, Lemert discussed the concepts of primary and secondary deviance. Primary deviance is the initial deviance undertaken to solve an immediate problem or meet subcultural group expectations. For example, a juvenile delinquent shoplifts. Okay, that's primary deviance. Now, the secondary deviance, it's the result of official labeling and from association with others who have been so labeled. So basically what he's saying is that labeling theory only explains secondary deviance, but really cannot explain primary deviance. Okay, now read the slide on your own. You have access to it on the on Blackboard. Now, I want to discuss Becker's type of delinquents. The pure deviant, according to Becker, is someone who's actually deviant and who is processed as a deviant. A falsely accused deviant is someone who is not deviant, but tagged, labeled, and processed through the criminal justice system as deviant. A secret deviant is someone who is able to get away with crime. So that's my lecture on social process theories. The next part of the lecture would be on social development theories. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next lecture.